This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Bud, here with co-host Mikey. Mikey, how are you today, my man?
I'm good, Bud. How are you?
You've moved the camera. We're not looking down upon you like we are 7 feet tall anymore.
Yeah. I had to do some camera shifts. You know, we're still wrapping up the finishing touches on the studio.
You still haven't come got the mic that I've got for you.
That's the key element. I'm waiting on the mic, so I'll have to cruise over to your house and grab that. But yeah, I wish. Why don't they come out with a monitor that has a built-in camera right in the middle of the screen that you can't see?
So I'm thinking about getting one of these, like, what is it called? It's like eye contact camera, where you actually flip it down and it kicks it right down in the middle of the screen.
Well, then how do you see your screen? You got the big camera.
It's very small.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's very small. We have not made the commitment to purchase this yet, but we will see. Maybe. Who knows? I'm pondering it, but I have not pulled the trigger for who knows why. I just haven't. So, oh, man. So we were traveling around. I was traveling around this week. It was fun. Thanks to everybody from the Missouri Beer Wholesalers Association that had me in.
Isn't it
a fun conversation? Missouri? Yes, Missouri. I did talk about it. I learned a whole dissertation about how, it used to be called Missouri, connected to, like native Indian culture, and us white people have changed it to where it's Missouri. So that's where that whole Missouri came from.
Okay. So yeah, it makes sense then.
And I don't have we may or may not have been receptioning and drinking a little bit of beer at the time, so I may or may not remember the whole story, but that's basically the gist of it. So yes, it was a great time in Missouri. Glad to be back today and another episode, because we're going into September thinking about price increases in October for some of the markets, not for all, but for some. So we thought it might make sense to talk about handling a price increase, doing it through the profitability lens, what to think about it. And, let's kind of dive in. What do you think, Mikey?
Yeah, it's always a fun conversation, right? It's everybody's favorite, talking about price increases. But we should be used to it by now. It's been happening once, sometimes twice a year for a long time.
Pray that it doesn't happen twice a year very often.
Right.
As somebody who used to handle pricing, and if you are listening to the podcast and you are in the pricing department and you hate it, just start making mistakes. They'll get rid of you soon enough. They'll move you on to a different thing. That's where I finally got rid of it. It was like, you know what? I took if I got to do this, I'm just going to start putting dirty dishes away so I don't get asked to do the dishes anymore, because I don't know what I should or shouldn't do. And that's what my attitude was with managing pricing. And finally, thankfully, to everybody's well wishes, Sandy took it over and actually managed it and took care of it.
I remember you and I having that conversation kind of early on when I was probably newer over to the sales management side, and I started wearing some different hats, and we were a smaller organization, so I started getting more stuff put on me. And I remember coming to you and I said, Bud, I will not do pricing. I'm going to tell you right now. I mean, I'll do anything else you hand to me, but I will not do pricing. And if you put that on my plate, we're going to have a bad conversation. And you never did. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was terrified of it too. It got anointed to me. And then I worked with Stephanie, virtual assistant, to help me manage some of it on the chain side. Cause then there's getting the chain pricing in, which is chaos. And it's just a big ball of wax. Now that's all the administrative piece, which was never really going to change from a big ball of wax side, more than likely. And today, what we wanted to more spend time about is when you do a price increase, there are a lot of old school thinking mentalities that are volumetric thought processes that could be evolved. And, there's more nuance to it, and there's more thoughtfulness to it when you're thinking about it from a profitability lens and you're a salesperson or you're running the sales team. So that's where we kind of wanted to start with. So we got 3 ways to, profitably handle your price increases this year, and we'll go through them one by one. We'll name them today right now though. So limiting bridge buying, number one, synchronizing your price increases across multiple suppliers, and then maintaining customer relationships. So those are kind of the 3 segments we want to go through today. So the first piece is bridge buying. Mikey, why do we want to limit bridge buying as an organization? Or if we don't want to use the word limit, or that worries us or gives us
Discouraged.
heebie-jeebies, why might we want to? Yes, good. There's other taglines. There's other, we put our sales hat on. Limit, discourage, encourage right-sized inventory, not over inventory. We could do a lot of sales and marketing work on this for sure.
So many reasons. I'm not a big fan of bridge buying or buy ups or buy-ins prior to a price increase. One, it's an absolute nightmare for forecasting. Product supply is just a nightmare. I remember going through when I was on that side, and then even working with Brad that took over forecasting. It's impossible to nail down who's going to buy and how many they're going to buy and how much do I need to have in the warehouse. That is just something that is logistically a nightmare. So starting there, right, and then trying to guess what you're going to sell in or who's going to buy, it never comes out right. And well, I mean, profitability, right? We're encouraging our customers to, and we'll dive into this a little bit later, but we're encouraging our customers to buy up at a cheaper price, resell that product most likely at a higher price, and then not buy from us for a long time when we have the higher price on the package. So we're losing a lot of profits there too. And I don't know if you want to dig into that right now or we want to dig into that a little bit later, but I mean, honestly, those are the 2 big ones. And then there's many, many more, right? As far as space goes in there, you're screwing up your entire ordering cycle. And God forbid somebody comes in after you that's relief route and trying to figure out how many to order, how many they need, you know what I mean? So, and then also on the data analytics side, when we're going back and we're analyzing numbers, we're seeing these huge spikes month prior, and we're seeing these huge declines month after. And then fast forward a whole year later, now we're trying to set goals or set company objectives around some of those really, really wonky sales cycles as well. So again, I'm not a fan. Am I missing anything with that, Bud? What would your feedback be on that?
The other piece I added in the mix is the incremental cost or increased finished product loss or rotation of product because the bridge buy gets overdone in a certain account or a handful of accounts. So, when a bridge buy happens from a finished product loss, out of code or close to code, if somebody genuinely overbuys and way out kicks their coverage, you maybe 60, 90 days worth of product, you can quickly run into, now I've got to pick up product. It did a favor to a customer, and then I got to pick up product, and then I got to move it somewhere else, or I got to eat it. And now you turn an opportunity into a missed opportunity, into shooting yourself in the foot over the whole ball of wax and process in general. So, let's kind of piece them apart one by one. So let's go with profitability first around, doing this related to a profitability lens for us as a wholesaler. It'd be self-serving to start with.
Yeah, profitability. Like I said, we're buying these products at price A, which is pre-price increase, right? We're warehousing them sometimes 30, I mean, maybe if we're getting one, 35, 40 days out before they're sold. So we have these products sitting in our warehouse at price A prior to price increase. Now, when we allow our customers to go out and buy up all of our inventory on that, then that's all out in the market, right? And then sometimes they're going to pass that savings on to their customers because, I mean, I think out of all of our customers, we might have had 5. I could probably count them on one hand that would actually pass that savings on to the customer because they wanted to be the cheapest in town. The rest of them wanted to pocket that extra money that they were going to make because day one, when everybody else started going up in price, they were right there too. They were changing their price on all that product. And I knew they had a back room or a warehouse full of back stock. Now it's my problem now, right? Tracking out of code. But, when we can get out ahead of it and we can talk to our customers about not buying up, maybe throw in some of the negatives. Now I am not only keeping my sales cycle, but I'm also selling in that product at price A to the retailer. They're changing their price right when we go up, right? Now we start selling them the profit or the product at price B. But we still have 30 days of inventory sitting in our warehouse. So now if I'm a rep and I'm, especially if I'm on VXP, I'm loving this, right? Or any kind of sales comp program to where you're being compensated for growing profits. Now my profits are up, right? And I know we always look out for the retailer, but I also have to look out for myself. So if I'm making an extra 30 cents per package that we're selling for that 30 days, my GP is going to go way up and I'm going to profit from it. And so is the company, right? So I know there's two ways of looking at it, looking out for the customer, number one, looking out for yourself too, but there's too many negatives that go into it. And if anybody's going to grab some extra coin during that period, it needs to be the company that's writing my paycheck or the person that's writing my paycheck, right? And if we're on VXP, like we tell a lot of our clients, that's the best time of year. That's free GP being thrown at you, right?
Yep.
So at least with our sales reps, they would come around and the pink would come through, and they're, oh man, another one. Then when we switched over to VXP, they're like, all right, yep, all right, we can do this, right? And then our bridge buying went way down.
Yeah. It became that piece was fascinating to me because everybody used to complain on the sales team about price increase, and we were volumetric driven before we moved to the VXP model, and it was like, oh, after this nobody's going to buy anything, and like all my sales are going to go down, and I'm not going to make any money. And it just became this whole thing about like how much inventory can we get into the warehouse and how much product can we sell. And as a volumetric exclusive kind of like culture at the time, that, I mean, you show me the incentive, I'll show you the response. It makes total sense looking back at it. When we brought GP, it became the sales reps had a better armed method and reasoning to defend and advocate for themselves and for the business to not send that extra, 3 weeks or 4 weeks worth of supply. And they put on their sales hat and they negotiated with the client in a more, or the process, or they negotiated with the customer in a more elegant manner. And that became a really smart thing for us. The other piece is, and I love how combative you are about this. Like, I want to make this money for the wholesaler, and the retailer shouldn't be pocketing this cash. I appreciate the combative nature of where you come at it from. To put a smoother edge on it from my seat is, we want to, if we're going to partner with retailers, we have to find reasonable ways to partner with retailers. And every time you do something for a retailer, there should be a give and take back and forth. And if you're going to welcome or allow or, create an opportunity for a retailer to do a bridge buy, there needs to be a negotiated sold in agreement that this product will hold price for the timeline that it should be held for until it turns over, and then the retailer should be taking the price up. And these are all things that you can work through as a sales team and actually have these really smart tactical selling conversations with retailers to take advantage of a bridge buy in a way that does increase volume and does increase profit by strategically doing it and making it make a lot of sense. So I'm not totally against having a retailer bridge buy, and I'm not totally against it when you put it through that lens. Like, hey, if you want to do the big bridge buy, retailer, here's what I need to have that happen. Product needs to be out on the floor. It needs to be priced. I'll bring in some kind of cool temporary point of sale to make it look attractive, make it look pretty. We can talk about how this is, we could even maybe call out like this is the last 30 days or last 2 months of what, this price until it's gone. We can even call some like sense of urgency to it potentially in some way, shape, or form, or sense of supply or limited supply. When you're doing that, that makes a lot of sense. If you're just bridge buying it to then just put it in the back room to make the extra money yourself as a retailer, there's got to be something else in it long term, because that's okay too. If there's another sales tactic that the sales rep has figured out that maybe post this, they're going to get 2 more incremental displays of high GP for the remainder of the year or next year, some kind of, side agreement on that. These are all things that are fair game and are all things that as a salesperson you should be thinking about, considering, and talking about with yourself before you go into retailers to sell these price increases.
Yeah, back to the good cop, bad cop, right? Opposing sides
Yeah.
here. I love that. What? So now, if I have this stack of beer sitting at my account at this lower price, and I'm encouraging, right, to not encouraging, but allowing this person. How do I handle my customer down the street that says, "Hey, why does Jimmy have all of this extra product at the old price? How you gave him a deal? I want that same deal." Right? I mean, that's, I guess, as a rep on the street, we have to face that too, which we did face a lot. We had to put out a lot of fires. I'd love to hear your feedback too, but I guess my feedback to my own question would be as well. Let that guy know down the street that, hey, he did not get a deal, right? Maybe his sales are a little bit slower. Maybe he did buy up, and try to handle that fire prior to, because they all talk, they all see price, right? And they're all tracking each other's price. But just brainstorming here, what are some other, because that's going to happen. It happened to us a lot. So, and when you see that, what's some good feedback for handling that?
Yeah, limiting people's bridge buying activity is something that the sales team individually wants to creatively work through on their own. That'd be the best case scenario, is that your sales team feels confident and armed and able to handle these situations one-on-one. The other things that leadership and management can do to provide support is that they can put inventory caps on transactions. Like, hey, we can't have anything going out greater than, X percent of sales or more than so many number of cases. Your size and scale of wholesaler, that can be harder and harder to implement. Probably would have been really easy for us to implement like a max buy on an Ultra or on a Bud Light or a Miller Lite or a Coors Light, something like that at our size and scale. But somebody's got 10,000 customers, it's probably going to be a pain in the butt or not be able to be done at all. The other piece of it is we have to be, and this is kind of an industry challenge, we have to be okay with telling people no more often and writing some policies around that. And I'm not a huge policy people. Anybody who's worked with me or works with me one-on-one, they know I hate policies. And rules to me are always moving everything to the lowest common denominator instead of raising the floor to the highest that it can become. But what happens when you do write policies like this and you do document it, you give an arm, like kind of like a shield or armor to the sales rep of, hey, I'd love to do this for you. Policy is that we're allowed to do this. You're to sell you 2 weeks worth of inventory or 3 weeks worth of inventory or whatever it is. And the piece that I get concerned about writing that policy is then that becomes a norm. And that's what the rep sells, instead of saying like, hey, who are my hardest problem children? Arming the ASMs or the team leads or the territory managers to go have those conversations with one-on-one, and then just letting the sales team limit everything or manage everything as actively as possible. There were a lot of things that you and Tommy did where we knew, and every market knows who's going to be your problem children and your problem clients. And you just went out and managed that for the rep from a position of management. And then it just fizzled out more faster.
Mm-hmm.
It was mo bad a way to handle it. So that was another good thing. The other piece too is like, if you're selling a price increase and you're in a quantity discount state, what you can do, or what I would do if I was in a QD state, is I just raise the minimums for the month leading in the price increase. I just move the minimums up to a place in which you basically cut out the riffraff, and that you make people commit to a number that is just unobtainable on a regular basis, and for a lot of the stores. And then the following month you can lower them back down to wwhatever normal levels are. That's like a really simple way. That's probably like the most like tactical way to do it if you're in a QD state.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's the road. We weren't QD state, obviously, but I think that's the way we went down too, where we just, it had to be a reasonable level for your weekly sales, and we always fell back on the excuse of inventory. We just don't have enough. If we sell you this quantity right now, and in most cases it was absolutely the truth, we sell you this quantity right now or give you any more than what your average weekly, or maybe we can bump you up a week or maybe two, but anything outside of that, we just don't have the inventory to do it. And then we're going to be out. Then we're going to get through this little cycle and we're going to be out, because it's not just us, but it's everybody across the country also doing that by it.
Yep. which is a totally reasonable thing. So that's kind of the high level. The final big takeaway is this gets so much simpler if you have your team focused on profitability in some way, because they are in it to win it on the profitability side, and that inherent GP bump that you get from a price increase during the first month, because you have product in your warehouse that you bought at a lower FOB and you're going to sell it for a higher PTR. When they're organically aligned to that outcome, a lot of this education is inspire and enroll and not command and control. And you don't have to do as much work as a manager or a leader of the organization. The reps go out, they understand it. The really, really bright reps figure it out on their own. The really, really smart reps with a little bit of education fully understand it and can go execute on it. And which is like, I mean, that's like 95% of the group. There's a lot of smart reps out there that just with a little bit of education really understand what they need to do and what makes the most sense, for sure. The next piece is synchronizing price increases. So, in 1999, to give a plug to MBWA, Beer Distributor Productivity Report, their average wholesaler had like 5 suppliers and like 200 SKUs in like the early 2000s, late 90s. Now we're on average have got, 40, 30, 40, 50 suppliers, easily, hitting 1,500 SKUs. We've got probably half of our client base is running 3,000 to 5,000 SKUs because they've got very complex portfolios. And the suppliers are going to go up at different times. So this creates a lot of noise now with the chaos. And I'm going to call us out in that we didn't do like the most incredible job at this, but over time we got better at synchronizing what we were doing for a pink around the same time as everything else. And there's a couple different ways to do it, but this is a really good thing to start to like focus on, like, how do I do one pink instead of multiple pinks? And one of the main reasons, which we'll get to at the end too, is like selling a price increase means stop selling product, basically stop selling product. You just start selling that negativity. For anybody in the HR department or for everybody who has an HR discussion every year, it's exactly what I think about for when we talk about the entitlements of healthcare. Like, we have every other employee relationship project stops until we all digest that we're going to pay 12 or 15 or 20% more for healthcare, and that we're all pissed off about that for the next 60 days. Yeah. And all sales conversations stop until we digest the sales process around the pink. So limiting the number of them, given the number of suppliers we have, is a good idea for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to go deliver bad news 5 times a year when we can sneak it down to once or twice.
Exactly. So how do you do that, though? The challenge is, how do you do that when you've got multiple suppliers? What I like to do when we got a little bit better at this is that we would communicate our intentions to our other suppliers that we are going to take our prices up in October or February or December. And our plan is to move yours up with no guidance. We will do what we want. And that was the notification to those other suppliers of like, this is the move, this is the momentum. We have to provide our recommendations in a reasonable amount of time. And we usually got those done in a reasonable amount of time too.
I remember most of them being surprised when we would go to them asking, right? Hey, this is when we're going up here. I don't know if you guys are thinking about it in the next couple of months, or hey, I've already seen this plan. We'd like to move up sooner.
And we never did it as we were asking. I always did it as we were telling them. Like, we're going February 1st. We're going to increase prices on 19.2s to the tune of, $3. We're going to do this for 6-pack bottles, this for 12-pack cans, and provided no guidance from you or no FOB and PTR recommendations on your end, this is what we're going to do if you do nothing.
Yeah.
So that kind of kicked everybody in gear to at least understand what we were going to do. And we had to figure a couple of things out along the way, which is easy in standard operating procedure when you're working with a partner. But that is important for us to, be proactive with our peers and start to move when we should, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Making it a one-time bucket deal, right? I mean, it's so much easier for a retailer to absorb that one booklet of price increase instead of every 3 months or every couple months and then coming back again. You're going to get a lot of negativity because most likely the suppliers that are going up after our main supplier, right, outside of our MC or AB suppliers, we're the only ones carrying those products. So we're the only ones delivering those price increases. So now we are the bad rep within our community of reps in that store. And we don't want to be in that position, right? Especially if we have two, maybe three times more suppliers than some of our competition. Obviously, we're going to be delivering more price increases than they are just because of the amount of suppliers we have. So, but that translates back down to to the retailer of this guy's always going up on price. Why is your company always taking price when it's really not us? It's outside of our control. It's our suppliers. So I do. It's really important to wrap those up into one sheet, or not one sheet, but one booklet at one time frame.
And then there's part 3. So the sales team and maintaining customer relationships. Mikey, what's some advice and feedback for maintaining customer relationships through this price increase time? And like, what is the human element? We talked about the incentive side from the reps and the incentive side from the company. We talked about synchronization, which is more of an administrative practice, an administrative behavior for the wholesaler. The last step is kind of like the human element of managing as much as you can and keeping your selling hat on as much as you can. So where's some good advice for reps and sales teams listening to focus on that?
Yeah, this is probably one of the worst parts of our job, right? As a sales rep going out and telling retailer that we're taking price, because typically they don't translate it to where they're going to be making a little bit more profits too. If they're working off a percentage, they're going to be increasing their profits as well. But and it's hard, especially, I mean, coming from a company that most likely always led in a price increase, right? And then we had to wait for competition to follow. So we were always in the position of coming out with it first and having to break that news. But we also know that historically now, at least, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but for at least the last 10 years, we've seen a price increase of some sort once a year from our major suppliers, at least. So knowing that, and some of our retailers probably don't either remember that or maybe they're kind of in and out, but being open, being transparent about that. Hey, just so you know, we have a price increase every year. The timing sometimes changes. It's usually in the fall. Sometimes it's early spring. Don't really know. But that's where it falls, right? Starting there to where that they already know. I mean, as humans, we don't like news or any kind of big change to be dropped on us with maybe 2 weeks warning or maybe less than that because we're still working on, resends and finishing up the final price increase letter. But as humans, we like to have that heads up, right? So, and if we know, hey, it's August, I haven't seen a price increase letter yet. Maybe the rumor on the streets is coming in October. But just being open, that way they know they expect it. It's coming back around, and then helping them through that. I mean, a lot of the pushback we're gonna get to is pricing. All the shelf strips need to be replaced. All the POS needs to be replaced. So being there, being supportive, and being right out, being the one that to tell them, not waiting for them to ask, what are you going to do about all these prices? Hey, I'm here to support you, right, all the way through this. I'll have all of your pricing already submitted. I'll have that in my van ready to go. The day you want to go up on pricing, we'll have that switched over for you. So basically, being forward thinking, addressing their needs prior to them panicking about their needs and panicking about the situation is probably number one. And being transparent about timing on that too. Also working through with products, right? Like we had talked about earlier, but bridge buys and stuff like that. Being there just to talk them through it, let them know, hey, I'm not going up on my entire book, right? We're not talking about an entire major supplier portfolio going up. We're talking about these key packages, right? Breaking it down. So when you first present it with, hey, we're going up in price, maybe the retailer has it in their mind that every single package is going up. This is going to be an absolute nightmare. Why are we doing this? But when we break it down and say, hey, you know what? It's probably only these 10 key items, or it is these, 7 key items, and this is what we're going up on. And if you remember correctly, last year we didn't go up on these. Maybe some of these we haven't gone up on in a couple of years. So having that knowledge and already having that background in your head prior to going into having those conversations really helps break down a lot of the barriers you're going to run into.
Yeah. We also did some really smart things around presenting the price increase with some data around it for the retailers to help guide them to pricing decisions. So we would put every single package with a margin or markup percentage at 5% increments, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And we did, it's crazy to say 5, but we did have a market where some retailers, either on really large packages or premium single serves as a foot traffic tool, did have a really low markup on those items.
And it worked.
Just because it was, flavor was, every retailer specific. But one of the nice things about that, particularly for somebody who's, an immigrant store owner, and maybe the English language isn't their strongest, and maybe this analytics and the math isn't their strongest suit. They're really good at running the counter, and they're really good at being available and kind of managing the store and the store layout on the customer relationships. We can come to them with those, services. And this isn't like a big fancy ass tool. This is a really simple tool that add to them and helps them guide through. And then sales reps would work with them, and they'd circle, this is what I want to price these items at. And then that would be something they could take notes on and then go back to the sign department and say, I need shelf strips at this price. I need cooler stickers at this price. I need a 3x5 for the front door on the window of the perf for this. And I need 2 3x5s for the front that are in those frames for these products.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good way to collaborate and work together on what they wanted to do so we could get that transition done. And so trimming it down, two letters should always go out. You should have available a full booklet of all the pricing. That's all the fresh pricing when it comes out. But in front of that should be the shorter booklet, which is just the things that are changing.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? What is it going to be? And what are the options in 5% increments for margin or markup, depending on how your market works and what you want to do. You do either one, it doesn't matter. And when you do that, that makes it so simple for a retailer to fully pick through and understand exactly what they're looking at and exactly what their options are. It's not every retailer sells everything. There are a bunch of retailers that sell a lot, but the cross section of what's going up and what I sell could be small, and helping that retailer find those things that are key to your point that matter to them, but not all the stuff that matters to everything. That's going to solve the problem for sure. And I liked your idea of floating this out earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And, we would do some good strategic discussions with key retailers to keep them in the loop of hey, we're going up, in October, or we're planning to go up in October, even if we're talking to them in July and August, just because we want them to strategically understand that piece. Yeah. You also touched on, Mikey, and I want to hear any anecdotal story you have about it, educating the retailer on they're going to make more money on this too.
Absolutely, yeah. If they're taking 25% margin and we go up in price, obviously that PTR is changing. So they're going to be making a few extra pennies too. So calling out that, hey, price increases are not always easy to absorb, get through and all that other good stuff. But hey, you're going to be making more money too, right? Your profitability is going to go up. And most likely these key packages that I'm going up on are high volume players. So although the pennies really don't look substantial on paper, but when we start talking about the volume and maybe how many that retailer sells, even breaking that out for them a little bit and just saying, hey, on a monthly average, you could be making an extra X amount of dollars on this price increase too. So bringing them into the profitability side of the conversation goes a long way, because their head is not normally there. Their head is normally, my cost of goods are going up, my prices have to stay the same, my margin goes down. So, bringing them into the conversation of the profitability will help ease, I guess, that price increase as well. And then also too, if we have some packages in the store that are still a good value play, I'm not talking just value 30 packs or anything like that, but they're still a good cost, right? As an AB wholesaler, there was many times where we went up in Bud Light, we didn't go up in Ultra, or we went up in Ultra, we didn't go up in Bud Light, right? Neither one of them are value plays, but one of them didn't go up. Using that to leverage, in the retail of, hey, this package is not going up. Maybe it's even in the same family, but it's a specific package. It's not going up in price. let's get that out on display prior to this price increase, because that can hold price and drive some additional volume through that package or through that brand, and maybe take some ice and attention off of the packages that did go up in the coolers. So another good way to kind of skirt around it too, and draw attention from the prices going up. And I'll be honest, I mean, most likely most shoppers don't even really realize for
Yeah.
about a month after. Then they're going, you know what? That 30 pack or that 24 pack has gone up. I've noticed it everywhere, but it takes a good solid 30 days for that really to absorb, sometimes longer, with the customer that's actually doing the shopping.
Yeah. This price increase is probably this latest one coming will probably be a little bit harder than the last few, as the consumer is starting to exhaust some of their discretionary or most of their discretionary income, depending on who you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, interest rates are potentially coming down very soon at the time of recording of this in September 18th, 2024. So not to date it, but it is going to come out in a few days. And, that piece is going to be a little bit more challenging than the price increases in 2021, 22, and 23, just because everything else was going up so much with such regularity, in a lot of ways faster than your beverage alcohol was as well. So, those elements are going to be probably back to akin of 2016, 18, 2016 and probably 2019. This is going to probably be a lot more what that price increase looks like too. Any specific thing to think about, like draft and on premise, or maybe this is Bud's afterthought on this, but I never really minded a $5 or $10 price increase on a keg. And I frankly didn't think on-premise retailers should care too. When you divide it out over 160 servings, it's like we're talking about a few pennies here, not a lot.
Not a lot, no. When you break it down like that too, because I remember some key on-premise customers getting upset about the $5 increase, which is generally what a draft increase is on a half release, and having to break that down per ounce, right, or per serving, whether they're serving 12 or 16 ounce, breaking it down and then seeing the pennies. What got me the most is if competition went up and they raised beer prices on everything, but my products or the other products still remained at the same price, and and now everything went up. So in my book, in my comeback of, all right, well, hey, now we just increased our profitability across the entire board because of that one price increase. Maybe next time this comes around, maybe we don't go up as much to the consumer. Maybe we kind of hold, right? But I think breaking it down per ounce per serving really opens their eyes of how much did it really go up. Are we talking, is this $1 per serving? No, absolutely not. We're talking a few pennies. So
for sure, it's a hidden challenge in their world, because they don't, it's going to be 325, 350, 375, or 4. Like, it's not going to be 309 for a pint. I mean, maybe at some bars it is, which would be
my local
very
water
eclectic.
Prices like that. They have pennies.
I mean, that's pretty entertaining, but that is a very big exception, not the rule by any stretch.
Yeah, exactly. You want to keep it even.
Well, I think this was a great discussion, Mikey. You've got, to recap for everybody, we've got limited, manage, limited. We maybe need to come up with some better taglines for sure, Mikey, but, I'm just going to stick with limited the bridge buying, synchronizing your price increase across multiple suppliers, as many products as you can, and then good sales strategies for maintaining customer relationships. We could go deeper and deeper into this. We like to keep these things short-ish and, focused. I'm sure this is something we'll probably talk about in more detail in the future as well. So thanks for listening, everybody, today, and cheers, Mikey.
Cheers. I'm glad we cut it short, though, but I have to run out before October and load up my basement for my bridge buy.
For your bridge buy. Yes, that boy.
Cheers, everyone.